Okay, so as an architect, I spend most of my days surrounded by complex blueprints, huge supply chains, and, heavy construction machinery. It's just how we build things today. But what we're going to explore in this explainer completely shatters all those modern rules. We are looking at a permanent, incredibly sound stone castle that took one man 400 days to build entirely from the ground up. He hauled the stone himself, he mixed the mortar with his bare hands, and he slept under the stars while something seemingly impossible just rose right up out of the forest floor. There was absolutely zero modern equipment, no team of contractors, just pure, unadulterated human willpower and this really amazing intuitive grasp of natural engineering. Now, you might be wondering how people reacted to this idea. Naturally, an undertaking of this massive scale attracts some serious skeptics. When this guy first stood out at the edge of his family's land, this is a forest he'd actually explored since he was a kid, and envisioned a real stone-walled, timber-roofed castle, well, his friends just laughed at him. His family figured it was just a passing phase. One of his colleagues even bluntly told him, "You will quit within a month." But instead of getting discouraged, he actually used that skepticism as fuel. He took 3 weeks off work, and then another 3, and eventually, he just stopped counting his days off entirely. The forest became his office, and that sheer determination, that really set the stage for what became an absolute architectural marvel.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, Vision and Material Selection.
Pretty much any architect will tell you that the absolute hardest part of building totally off-grid is sourcing your materials. Our builder literally had to become a master geologist overnight. Sure, the forest floor had some scattered stones, but he learned really quickly that not all stone is created equal. He correctly figured out that soft sandstone would just crumble under the immense weight of castle walls, and limestone, well, that absorbs water and cracks during winter freezes. So he targeted granite. It's incredibly dense, it's hard, and it's super weather resistant. But here's the catch, and this is wild. He had to drag these 30-kilogram stones half a kilometer from a dry riverbed using just a handmade wooden sled and a rope. Honestly, just hauling that material for the first month is a mind-blowing testament to his self-reliance. Moving right along to Section 2, Earth Foundation and Ancient Mortar. Look, the foundation is literally everything. You simply cannot build a massive stone structure on soft dirt. So he dug a 60-centimeter deep trench across an 8 by 6 meter footprint, and he did it entirely by hand. What he struck right beneath the topsoil was packed clay, which is essentially nature's concrete. It is incredibly hard and absolutely perfect for bearing a massive amount of weight. He used a traditional dry stone foundation technique here. That means he laid the first stones without any mortar, so the crushing weight of the entire structure above would actually press them tighter together over time, locking them right into that rock-hard clay base. Now, creating mortar without buying a single bag of factory cement, that requires some brilliant chemical ingenuity. He went back to the riverbed to collect raw limestone, built a dedicated, really high-heat fire pit just to burn the stones, and then mixed the resulting powder with sand and water. He literally recreated the ancient mortar that Roman and medieval builders used, and he did it entirely with his bare hands. Watching the process of him leveling each course with a simple handmade water tube, making sure the flattest, strongest faces of that granite pointed outward, it's just pure architectural poetry. Next up is Section 3, Wall Engineering and Thermal Mass. So he built these walls 60 centimeters thick. To put that in perspective, that is way thicker than modern building codes require, but it's exactly right for a medieval-style structure, and that's because of a concept called thermal mass. Thermal mass is essentially the ability of a really dense material to act like a sponge for heat, absorbing, storing, and slowly releasing that energy. As an architect, I am just thrilled to see this applied so perfectly to manage temperatures naturally. Those massive granite walls would keep the interior incredibly cool during those scorching summer months. And then in the winter, once a fire is finally lit inside, that thick stone absorbs the heat and radiates it right back into the room for hours. He also didn't just stack rocks. He implemented 2 highly advanced techniques here. First is something called coining. You see, a wall is really only as strong as its corners. So he specifically selected these large rectangular cornerstones to interlock with the courses above and below it, like a giant puzzle. It's a super robust method used since Roman times. Second, he set up systematic groundwater drainage. Ask anyone in construction, water is the absolute enemy of stone foundations. So before building up, he engineered perforated channels made of flat stone underground. This directed the groundwater away from the base, totally ensuring that winter freezes wouldn't expand the trapped water and crack his beautiful ancient mortar.
Okay, picture this, you're just out walking your dog in the woods, and suddenly you stumble upon a rising stone fortress. No joke, that is exactly what happened to a neighbor who just stood completely frozen, staring at the walls before finally asking, "I didn't know this was here. How long have you been building?" Our builder just smiled and said, "A while." I love this anecdote because it so perfectly contrasts the intense, solitary, quiet struggle of the builder with the undeniable, shocking reality of a literal castle emerging from the earth. By this point, it was no longer just some crazy idea in his head. It was undeniable, heavy masonry. Let's move to Section 4, Natural Scaffolding and Roof Peak. Modern construction heavily relies on cranes and heavy machinery to safely span a roof. But our builder, he relied on pure, incredible self-reliance. To safely reach the top of his 4-meter-high walls, he constructed an entire natural scaffolding system out of thick forest branches. He basically turned the forest itself into his construction equipment. It is such a stark reminder of what human hands can actually achieve when we're totally disconnected from all our modern conveniences. And this brings us to the absolute pinnacle of technical difficulty for this whole project, the ridge beam. This piece is the spine of the entire roof. He found and felled standing dead trees with a simple handsaw, so these trees were already naturally dried and rock hard, and he trimmed them completely by hand. Hoisting this massive main ridge beam all the way up to the roof peak, totally alone, took him 2 full days. He used nothing but ropes, leverage, and sheer physical willpower. Looking at it from an architect's point of view, the precision required to cut those joints and hoist that kind of weight entirely alone, without a single piece of heavy machinery, honestly leaves me in profound awe. All right, Section 5, Interior and Harmony of Life. To transform this cold stone shell into a truly livable home, it obviously had to be sealed. So he crafted a completely waterproof roof using more of those fallen dead trees, and then he layered natural bark and forest moss right over the timber rafters. This organic forest-made seal proved to be perfectly waterproof through 2 incredibly harsh winters. And on top of that, he engineered a highly systematic gravity-fed water channel. He carved it from split timber, and it literally collected rainwater from the roof, directed it into an exterior stone cistern, and fed a tap directly into his kitchen area. Talk about a brilliant off-grid utility system. But you know, a structure only truly becomes a home when you breathe life into it. He hand-built this massive, gorgeous stone hearth and chimney. And when he finally lit the very first fire in that hearth, wow. The sensory satisfaction of that moment, the sound of the wood crackling, that heat radiating off the cold stone, it carried such a profound emotional weight for him. He actually described it as the most satisfying moment of the entire project. All that thermal mass we talked about earlier, it was finally activated. The structure was officially alive. And finally, Section 6, a masterpiece of persistence. Think about this timeline. Day 1 was literally just a vision in the woods. By month 1, he was physically exhausted from hauling 30-kilogram granite stones on a wooden sled. By month 2, those walls were finally at knee height. It took 11 grueling months of solitary, back-breaking labor for the structure to become somewhat livable. And finally, on day 412, a magnificent 4-meter-high, weatherproof fortress stood completely finished. It's a masterpiece, built entirely with hand tools using materials that cost next to nothing, hidden away in a quiet forest. Now get this, the ripple effect of this project is absolutely astounding. He didn't build this for fame or clicks. He took exactly 1 photograph standing in the doorway of his completed castle, just smiling at what his own hands had made. Well, that single, unassuming photograph of his impossible dream found its way online, and it ended up spreading like wildfire. It inspired over 11 million people worldwide. I think it really reflects how a solitary act of sheer persistence can ignite this belief in all of us that we are capable of something extraordinary if we just place that first stone deliberately. So I'm gonna leave you with this question. What would you build if you had 400 days? Seriously, think about your own seemingly impossible personal goals right now. If one person can raise an entire castle from dirt and stone using nothing but his bare hands and unyielding willpower, what could you achieve if you applied that exact same level of determination to your life? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay bold, and I'll catch you in the next one.